Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today's studio session. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes to let a few more people join the call, so we will be beginning very shortly. Thanks for your patience. Hello, everyone. I believe we should start to kick off now. If anyone still is trickling in, that is fine. Awesome. Welcome, everyone, to today's studio sessions. My name is Lily Barrett, and I'm joined by my colleague, Amy Ferrari. We're both growth account managers here at Spotify, and we primarily work across the self-service advertising platform, working with SMB clients across both Australia and New Zealand. In today's session, we're going to unveil the secret sauce. We'll teach you the 5 key ingredients to writing the perfect audio ad. By the end of today's webinar, you should feel equipped with the information that you need to start creating attention-grabbing and impactful audio ads on Spotify. A bit of housekeeping before we start. As this is obviously a webinar, all your lines are on mute and your chat is disabled. We will, of course, be answering any questions that you have. Please just use the Q&A function down the bottom of the Zoom call. If we don't have time to get to all of them at the end, don't worry, we'll be answering all of them via email after. One last thing, the session today will be recorded. So if you ever wanted to rewatch it, or if one of your colleagues missed the call, they can, of course, rewatch it after, and we'll send the recording along with the questions at the end via email. For today's playlist, we will kick off with our latest sonic science research. And this is where we'll uncover how the human body reacts to digital audio. The findings in this scientifically prove how Spotify amplifies everyday experiences whilst also keeping engagement levels at peak. We'll then give you a quick introduction into Ad Studio, which is our self-service advertising platform. And this is where you can access that highly engaged audience on Spotify. Finally, we will reveal the secret sauce. We'll give you the tools to create impactful audio ads on Spotify. It is super easy. Amy is going to break it up into 5 key ingredients. She's also turned it into a burger metaphor. So that obviously makes it way more memorable. I don't know anyone that doesn't like burgers. And I believe she has called it her ad burger. Right now, people are streaming audio more than ever. On Spotify, people are averaging 2.5 hours a day of listening. In Australia, 41% of the online population is streaming Spotify each week. Globally across Spotify, we have 489 million monthly active users. And 295 million of those are on the ad-supported platform. And that's really that space where brands can connect with their audience whenever and wherever they're streaming music. We are also, much like Mr. Pitbull 305 himself, we are worldwide. You can reach us across 184 different markets across the globe. Jumping into Sonic Science 2.0. Firstly, what is Sonic Science? Sonic Science is a research initiative that we put together to better understand the highly personal role that audio plays in all of our lives. So we've done this before. We released volume 1 back in 2021, and this is where we partnered with a company called NeuroInsight, and we studied the effects that audio directly has on the human brain. This volume found that Spotify audio is more engaging than radio, TV, digital, and social media. But this time in volume 2, we did it a bit differently. And we went beneath the skin and studied the physiological effect that audio has on the human body. This was a first of its kind biometric research that we conducted with a different company this time called Mindprober. The study used hand sensors to measure something called electrodermal activity of Spotify free users. And that is literally just a fancy word for sweating, temperature changes, or your heart rate going up or down. So the participants would go about their days as usual, but they had an hour-long listening sessions whilst they were doing whatever it was that they were doing. So for example, were they cooking, driving, commuting, relaxing? And by measuring this type of activity, we were able to determine whether the audio content they heard, inclusive of the ads, caused something called emotional arousal, or in other words, were they paying attention? Delving into the results, something we already knew here at Spotify, but was confirmed with this study, is that digital audio reaches listeners all day, every day, literally 24 hours a day. So whether someone is walking, driving, cooking, shopping for groceries like this bloke is here in this photo, or even sleeping, there's a place for audio. And that's why we found that 63% of study participants confirmed that they consider Spotify to be an important part of their daily routines. You might think that because someone is multitasking or they're doing something else whilst they're listening, that they're actually paying less attention to the audio that they're listening to. But this study found that more than a third of study participants said that they focus all of their attention on the audio that they're listening to, even when they were doing activities that demanded high level of attention. For example, they were studying or working and using music to help them focus. They still had a highly engaged, they were still highly engaged with the audio that they were listening to. So it's fair to say that Spotify isn't, just a backdrop. It's actually often more center stage in our lives. It is one thing, though, to engage in the music and the podcasts that are in your ears, and a completely different thing to be engaging in the advertisements. But this study proved that Spotify listeners' high level of engagement stays consistent while listening to the ads too. And this is something that we have called the carryover effect, and it's really great news for you as advertisers. So the more impactful the audio content that one is listening to, the more impactful the subsequent ad will be. In volume 1, we proved this and how the brain's response to Spotify continued into the ads that the listener hears. We again proved this in volume 2, that the physiological engagement is also consistent. 60% of listeners' physiological engagement from the audio content was carried over into the subsequent ad. So this is just saying that you as advertisers can benefit from an environment on Spotify where both mind and body are engaged. One really cool finding that we found from this study is that listeners are getting a mood boost when they tune into Spotify. The participants said that regardless of when they were listening, what they were doing at that moment, and what they were listening to, they reported a mood boost from their Spotify listening session. And that's why 66% of global millennials and Gen Zs view audio as a mental health resource. Personally, I think this is an amazing statistic. I love it. In a world full of scrolling, that has been proved to have negative effect on one's mental health, in particular young people, it's great to see this positive finding like this coming from an increasingly online population. Audio streaming reflects what is happening IRL, in real life. People have different physical, emotional, mental needs throughout their days, and they're more often than not using audio now to fulfill these specific needs. So whether, you need motivation to get off the couch and go to the gym or go for a run, or that sense of belonging when you're having a listening session with your friends, or using musical or audio to relax, winding down from a busy day of work, or any of those moments in between, Spotify understands listeners' context. So in other words, we get our listeners like no other platform. And we can therefore confidently help you connect with the right people in the right context at the right time. The last major call out from the Sonic Science Report, Volume 2, and perhaps the most important call out, is that Spotify listeners not only remember the ads that they heard, but they actually convert too. After every listening session, the participants were asked to recall the brands for which they heard in the session. Mind you, these ads were made up mock brands, they didn't exist. And that was, of course, to prevent any bias in the study. We found that ad recall was 5 times greater than the expected rate of ad recall when compared to a model based on chance. Even when they were performing other activities like those they were multitasking, those activities I've been stating already, like they're driving, cooking, commuting, they still had the same rate of ad recall. Spotify listeners also just didn't remember the ads, they actually bought the product or service as well. So 1 in 5 reporting looking up the brand or product online after, or 30% said that they were also likely to purchase the product or brand after hearing it on Spotify. On top of this, and the last major call out from this, the Sonic Science research, is that people are streaming content on the same devices that they're shopping on. So for example, mobile or desktop. This, of course, creates a smooth funnel straight from awareness all the way down to sale. So if these results excite you like they do me, and you want to target this engaged audience on Spotify, I'd like to introduce you to Ad Studio, our self-service advertising platform. Ad Studio functions much like the other self-service platforms out there. It is very intuitive and it is very easy to use. It offers speed, flexibility, and control with your campaign. It's obviously self-service, so of course you're in the driver's seat with Ad Studio, you're in control. We have powerful targeting options, which are backed by Spotify's streaming intelligence, or in other words, our first-party data. We have multi-format ad solutions, so we have both audio and video on platform. My personal favorite is the free audio creation tool that we have built into platform. So if you don't have an audio asset, you don't want to pay to get one produced, we can literally do one for you for free for every single campaign. We also have real-time reporting. So this allows you to check your campaign in real time and optimize in real time whenever you need. We're also routinely running these webinars on how to use Ad Studio. So if you did want a detailed walkthrough on how to use Ad Studio, you can check out our previous studio session webinars on demand. Or if you're ready to get started, head to ads.spotify.com to create an Ad Studio account. I promise you it will be the easiest thing that you do today. To recap, I've shown you the power of audio and the powerful environment of Spotify. I've given you the tools to target this audience through Ad Studio, our self-service advertising platform. As we approach lunch, I am starting to get hungry. So I think it is the perfect time that Amy unveils her ad burger. She will now show you how to create the impactful attention-grabbing ads on Spotify. Passing over to Amy.
Awesome. Thanks, Lily. Hi, everyone. As Lily mentioned earlier in the call, I'm Amy. I'm also an account manager for Ad Studio. So let's talk about what it takes to write a great audio ad. So Lily's taken you through those awesome insights, the insights into the power of Spotify and the engagement that runs all the way through to ads. She's also highlighted Ad Studio, which is that tool that you can all use to harness that power. But now I'm going to go into how to actually create an audio-friendly ad, so you can use that power, get in front of that audience at the best quality that you can. So just to highlight again, Lily briefly mentioned this, but we do have a free audio ad tool. So if you don't have your own audio ad available, we can have one created for you. So the recipe that I'm about to outline, you can easily implement into an audio ad yourself. Just to highlight, Lily mentioned, more than a third of study participants said that they focus all their attention on audio when they're tuning in. And from our recent studies, ad recall was 5 times greater than the expected rate. So it is super, super important that we design an audio-friendly ad to utilize the power of Spotify streaming. In my opinion, the best audio ads almost sound improvised because they're so conversational. But if you sit down and write an audio ad script, you'll realize it's anything but improvised. In fact, there is a formula to writing an audio ad script, or what I would like to say, there is a recipe. And I have broken each element or each ingredient, as we'll go into, of an audio ad script into 5 distinct parts. And when you put these 5 parts, or these 5, ingredients together, you will end up with what I call an audio ad burger. And this is what you see in front of you right now. So apologies to all the big Aussie burger fans out there, the burger with the lot, classic Aussie burger, pineapple, beetroot. I mean, it's really great. But for this instance, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to have a simple burger. And this is, no matter what you're promoting, if you follow this recipe, you can fill in that blank page with a script that is going to be super effective and, most importantly, audio friendly. So let's start at the top. The very first ingredient is the crown, the top of the bun that sits on our ad burger. And this is your branded introduction. So within the first 5 seconds of any audio ad, you should introduce the advertiser by name. You may be tempted to start with a rhetorical question, but generally speaking, tactics like this may hold you back in 2 ways. So the first way is that they eat up your runtime, which is usually very short. We're working with 15 or 30-second audio ads here. 2, they're demanding the listener's patience. So it delays the listener from knowing who you are, and you want to tell them who you are as quickly as possible. In my opinion, writing for an audio ad is all about maximizing that runtime by just being clear and concise. One tip that I'll come back to over and over again with each ingredient is the first bullet or dot point on this slide, which is end your sentences with the most important word. That way, the last thing that a listener will hear is what you want them to remember the most. So in this instance, for example, we want to say something like, for all your last minute gifts, shop at brand X. So brand X is the last thing that the listener will hear, and that will be top of mind. As well as this though, if you are writing an audio ad that's exclusive to Spotify, definitely add in something really casual, like a greeting, like, hey, Spotify listeners. That just will differentiate this ad from all your other audio ads, say, like your traditional radio ads. So on the example on the right-hand side of the slide, I'll be outlining a full audio script with each ingredient using a fake brand. This made-up brand is a productivity app called Clickify. which is super original. I know. Spotify, Clickify, it just came naturally to me. But here we go. Here's the very first line. So manage your business in one place with Clickify. Simple. The audience knows who you are. So let's move on to the next ingredients. These are the tomatoes, and the tomatoes will represent the second line of your script, which is the branded definition. Now, again, apologies to everyone out there that really doesn't like tomatoes on their burgers. You cannot pick them off for this scenario, so you're gonna have to keep them on because they're vital. But what we've done is we've said who we are. Now it's time to say what you do. Basically, all we've got to do is think of the question, what do you do? And answer that. So defining yourself in a single sentence. Brand X is a global leader in Australia, or Brand X is an award-winning auto insurance company. You can also go in and use some active verbs. So something like Brand X offers, or Brand X helps connect. You just don't want to use words or phrases like the best or the greatest, and definitely avoid jargon or really big words or a lot of syllables. It's not that easy to follow when you're listening. Just keep it very clear and simple. A good way to do this is just think about how people talk in real life. So how I'm talking now, like it's very casual. I'm not using any big words. For example, don't say things like utilize, just say use. This will also actually make sure that you are not wasting any of that limited character count for your ad. So the example on the right, I define this fake brand as follows. Clickify is a cloud-based productivity platform. That's it. So we've introduced the brand, and then we've defined the brand. And after the tomatoes, we have our lettuce. We have the bit of crunch that we need to elevate our burger, and that is our takeaways. So here, you really want to identify 3 key takeaways that you want the listener to remember about your product or service. So this could be anything like 3 benefits, 3 features, or simply 3 key points. But what's like the most important takeaway you want your listeners to remember about your brand? Also know, like just a tip here, you're writing for ears, not eyes. So the only person that's going to read your scripts is the voiceover artist. So it's not that important that your script is grammatically flawless on the page. But in the final point, we want to mention the most key, I guess, key takeaway at the very end. So you'll see in my example on the right, I have ended with inventory as the last key takeaway, which moves us on to the meat section. The meat section, it's the best part of the burger. It is like the main part of the burger. We cannot have the burger without the meat section. It's juicy, it's putting it all together, it's delicious. And this section is where we go into the details. So in the previous section, the lettuce, we listed 3 key takeaways, and we ended with inventory, which was the most important key takeaway. And this was on purpose, because now what we're going to do is actually dive a little bit further into the details of inventory. Now, in this section, the details are probably going to be between 2 to 4 sentences, but just keep in mind the meat section should not be any longer than 10 seconds when you're recording. So the example on the right, you can see we've got into the inventory piece. So we say, with Clickify, if you sell out of coffee mugs in your warehouse, your website will know this automatically, and so will your team. That's because Clickify uses real-time data. Resist the temptation here to over-explain. I would recommend breaking any paragraphs that exceed 2 to 3 lines. I would just say the biggest tip here is read your script out loud. So record it on your phone, listen to it back, or read it out to a friend or family, and then ask yourselves these 3 questions. So 1, do these words sound natural? So can you hear someone outside of your business using these words in real life? 2, are there moments to breathe? If you have to take a breath in the middle of a sentence or paragraph, it is too long. And 3, finally, time yourself against the runtime. If your script is 30 seconds long, that's most likely not going to be any more than 60 to 65 words. And the most important thing here is to not sound rushed, because listeners will not be inclined to hear you out. And now we're getting to the final part of our ad burger, the bottom half of the bun, the most crucial part to this burger. This is what puts it all together so you can actually take a really good bite and enjoy what you've created. And that is the call to action. So I know we all know, we would have known this for a long time, but call to actions are so crucial in driving responses. So what is it that you want your listener to do after they've heard your ad? With call to actions, we often tend to use words like learn more or shop now to direct people online. And call to actions that actually direct people to websites increases consumer intent by nearly 100%. So in other words, online call to actions nearly double consumer intent compared to offline call to actions. And that's according to Spotify's internal research. Another thing is Lily actually touched on this earlier, that on Spotify, we do have that easy flow from awareness on our app through to sales due to that consumer behavior. So most people shop online on their phone or desktop, and that's exactly where they are when they're streaming Spotify. Another dot point on this slide as well, a common technique with online call to actions is to use promo codes. One thing here though is remember to spell out, not just with promo codes, but anything in the call to action, just remember to spell out any words that might be difficult to discern by ear. So if you want to include Spotify 10 for 10% off, spell that out. So is it Spotify 10 or is it Spotify TEN? Just make sure that everything here is audio friendly. I think most importantly as well though, is to keep call to actions as short and as simple as possible. So avoid dashes, numbers, multiple slashes, just long URLs in general, because they become a lot harder to follow. A really cool thing and simple thing you can use specifically with Spotify ads is you can simply say, to learn more, click the banner below, because all your ads will have a clickable call to action in this banner format. And you can use that instead of having to spell out or say your URL. Finally, with this is, again, as I've mentioned before, we want you to end the sentence on the most important thing that you want the listeners to remember or to go and do. So instead of saying something like clickify.com to learn more, reverse that and direct the people to the URL. So you would just say, to learn more, go to clickify.com. Great. So this is our completed ad burger. You can see that each line or paragraph corresponds to the ingredients in our ad burger that we've run through. We've got the opening line, which introduces the brand. We've defined the brand. We have our 3 key takeaways. And then in that third paragraph, we've explained the key takeaway, I guess, in more detail. And then we've ended with a very strong call to action. So I'm going to read this example out loud. Let's hope it sounds really good. But here we go. Manage your business in one place with Clickify. Clickify is a cloud-based productivity platform, a platform that helps you oversee your projects, teams, and inventory. With Clickify, if you sell out of your coffee mugs in your warehouse, your website will know this automatically, and so will your team. That's because Clickify uses real-time data. Try it today. For your first month free, head to our website by clicking the banner below. Awesome. So I hope that was helpful for everyone. I hope that the ad burger metaphor is really easy for you to remember. But we've just gone through that. So we've created a very audio-friendly ad. To reiterate again, though, we are here for additional support for self-serve advertisers. So if you're not in a position to record and mix audio ads yourself, go onto Ad Studio. You can upload your own audio ad creative that you've got, or you can use our free audio ad tool. Simply write a script, keeping in mind our ad burger and the most important parts of that ad burger. Pick a background song from our library, and voila, you've got a recorded voiceover that's going to be provided to you. And then you can also review your ad at no additional cost. And then within 24 to 48 hours of your script and instructions being submitted into the platform, you can have a campaign running with that awesome audio-friendly audio ad based off our ad burger. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks for being here with the webinar. We're now going to jump into any questions that you have asked in our chat box. If we don't get to them all, though, we will be able to email a response to you. And also, as we mentioned earlier, this is being recorded, so we'll also send that out as well. But I'm going to hand it now back to Lily to lead the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. That burger looks delicious. Can't wait to try it out. Jumping into some of the questions, please continue just to pop them in the box down the bottom. As Amy said, we'll be able to answer all of them if we can't get through them today via email. The first one is, I'm happy to take this one. How many users are there in Australia and New Zealand across Spotify? So like most platforms, we can't share our country level data. We can only share our global data, which I did at the start of the webinar. But according to Comscore data, in Australia, there are 12 million plus monthly active users, and 54% are on the ad-supported platform. So there's more of a skew to the free tier. In New Zealand, according to Comscore, there's 1.75 monthly active users, and 38% are on the ad-supported platform over there. Next question. Amy, I'll palm this one back to you. What are the targeting options available across Ad Studio?
Yes. Awesome.
I think you're on mute, Amy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, good. Great. Apologies. Okay. Yeah. So targeting options in Ad Studio. Okay. So we have quite powerful targeting options across Ad Studio, which do leverage Spotify's streaming intelligence. So we've got the typical like demographics, we've got geographics, and then in addition to this, we kind of have sections that how people stream, basically. So such as genres of music, real-time context, which is technically playlist targeting. And then we've also got interests and behaviors, so such as news, health and lifestyle, etc.
Great. Next one. Can you run podcast ads? Great question. Podcast ads are not currently available on Ad Studio in Australia, in New Zealand. However, they are coming, so watch this space. You can, of course, target these listeners, though, just whilst they're in a different streaming moment on Spotify. So whilst they're in a music environment. And that's kind of because if you think about it, music kind of only really tells us so much about our users. We can't really determine that someone is interested in the news or business because they listen to Drake or Eminem, whatever, or Pitbull. But we can, most of our audience segments are defined actually by the way people listen to podcasts. So therefore, if you're targeting these audience segments like business or news, you're retargeting these people who are listening to these podcasts just whilst they're in a different streaming environment on Spotify. So whilst they're in a music environment. We do have podcasts available in Australia and New Zealand. It's just across our different buying channel across the direct side of Spotify at a minimum cost. But right now on the self-service platform Ad Studio, it's just music ads and podcasts are on the way. Next one, Amy, I can palm this one back to you as well. What metrics do you report on Ad Studio?
Yeah, okay, cool. Great question. So we do all, I guess you would say, like regular digital metrics such as reach, click, impressions, click-through rate, and we also provide audience metrics so you can actually see what your audience looked like for that campaign. So an example would be age-wise. People aged 18 to 24 were the most engaged, or mobile had the highest reach, or even people who listen to pop music were most likely to click. So we have those sorts of metrics in Ad Studio in your report, and it's all in real time as well.
Great. Next one, I like this question. Where can I get the Sonic Science report? Thank you for asking. So you can download both Volume 1 and Volume 2 online at ads.spotify.com. We will send that link after, so you can go directly to it when we do our follow-up email after this. As I mentioned, Volume 1 is the report that we did, the study we did, how audio directly has how audio is affected, how digital audio directly affects the human brain, and Volume 2 was how digital audio directly affects the human body. So these are both really interesting to use in conjunction with each other and read one after the other. So we'll send that across later, but great question. Next one. Do you have retargeting options? I'm happy to take this one as well. This is a very, very timely question, as we have actually just introduced a new product feature to Ad Studio. So you can objection-based buy on Ad Studio depending on what your campaign goal is. So we originally just had a reach goal or an impression goal. So if it was a reach goal, your campaign would prioritize to reaching as many unique Spotify listeners as possible. If it was an impression goal, it would prioritize to delivering out as many impressions as possible. Now we have just introduced a new goal, which is a click goal. So this is where your campaign will prioritize to getting as many clicks as possible. So it's a more engagement focused, lower funnel campaign. And with this new goal comes a new product called CTA cards. So the ads will run like normal, an audio ad or video ad. When they run, they also simultaneously have a banner that runs at the same time. It's kind of like an MREC. We call it a companion banner. It's just a different sizing. So that will run simultaneously while your audio ad plays or your video ad plays. That's all the same. But the difference with a campaign, if it's a click objective, is what will happen for after 8 hours after someone is exposed to the video or audio ad is another banner will follow them around the platform, which is called the CTA cards, call to action cards, will follow them around the platform, prompting a user to click at a time that's more convenient for them. So this is obviously perfect for those screenless moments like audio. If you're working out, you hear an ad, you are obviously not going to stop what you're doing and click on it, but then conveniently we're prompting you to click at a later time. So that's probably a long-winded way of saying that, yes, we actually do now have retargeting options. It's built into the product of click objection goals at the moment. So it's built in to the product itself. Amy, this is a creative question. Is there a limit on how many changes you can make to the voiceover you receive? So obviously the free audio creative.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So the free audio creative, you can basically go back with changes to that team up to 3 times during that creative process. So you can actually change, like if you don't like the voice actor, You can change that. You can change the background music if it just doesn't sit well. You can even edit your script. So you can make changes like that up to 3 times, and it's of no charge. Yeah.
Great. I can see another question. You said you don't run podcast ads, but can we run musician ads to promote our music or our tour? Good question. On Ad Studio, there were 3 different types of campaigns. You can run one to promote your brand or your product. Then there's 2 other options for musicians to promote your music or to promote an upcoming show or merch. So yes, you can. You just need to click one of the other campaign objectives. Amy, I think we might have time for one more.
Yeah,
it's a creative one.
Yep.
I think, yeah, that is good for you. Is a 15-second or 30-second ad better?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say length is important, but it's not everything. So a 15-second ad will keep your brand top of mind. So it's very much like a simple like brand awareness piece. But a 30-second ad might be needed to communicate more information or have, direct consumers to a specific action. So the ad burger that we've just gone through, that script, that would be a 30-second ad. And in saying this, 15 and 30-second ads tend to perform quite similarly. I can never say that word properly, but anyway, but 30 seconds tend to deliver like a 1.4 times incremental sales and a 2.2 times ROAS compared to the 15 seconds. And I do think that's purely because you're giving them a little bit more information and a call to action. Also with that, just to wrap it up, word limits as well to keep mind of. So for a 30-second ad, we'd advise 60 to 65 words. And I believe that's also the character count limit that's in the free audio ad tool as well. So I hope that helps.
Awesome. I think that is all we have time for today. I can see there are a lot more questions in the Q&A box. Do not worry. We will be sending an email after this, answering all your questions and also sending across the recording of today. We'll also be able to tell you, give you more guidance on how to get started with Ad Studio and how to reach out to us. But if you are ready to get started today, please don't wait for the email. Head to ads.spotify.com to create your self-service advertising platform self-service ad on Ad Studio. I told you already, it'll be the easiest thing you do today. Thank you so much, everyone, for the webinar, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.